Welcome again to the K through 12 Revolution. This is Kendra Wright, who is my guest on the show today. Before we get into our interview, I want to thank Holly Hollister, who is back behind the camera, as is typical. Holly's been busy, though, in tax season. She's an accountant. She's a multiply talented person, so I really appreciate the work that she puts into this show, not only behind the camera, but also doing all of the editing. And I want to thank again Dwayne Smith, who is on the board at MTN and who helped a number of times, and Kevin Jenkins, as always, who spent some time behind the camera and is also my producer. So thanks so much to all of those people. So Kendra Wright is a person who showed up one night. You folks by now know that I do the New Salem Educational Initiative, which really has a couple of components. I do a 7-day-a-week program with 65 students spread over 17 different academic sessions, and that's been going for 10 years. And now for 20 years and more, we've done the Tuesday night program, which is mostly church kids from New Salem Missionary Baptist Church. And Kendra showed up one night. Actually, she called me and asked if she could volunteer as a tutor. And I said, well, sure. What's your interest? What's your background? And she began to tell me about this marvelous educational background that she has, and a first-rate math student. And I looked for years for an additional person who could really do fairly advanced math, and she can do really advanced math. So she's just a joy on Tuesday evening, and we're so glad to have her there. And in the course of time, we have had some really good conversations, and that is essentially why she's here today, because she's got a lot of interesting ideas on education. So as we have talked so many times before, would you just kind of tell the folks your personal background, where you grew up, and some of that, and then especially your experiences in school?
Definitely. Well, I am originally from the Twin Cities. Primarily Brooklyn Park, Maple Grove area. So for elementary school, I went to Zanewood Elementary, and then after that, Maple Grove Junior High. From there, I went to Osseo for a year, and my junior and senior year, I was at North Hennepin full-time as a college student. I am currently now at the University of Minnesota as a pre-med student, majoring in physiology and minoring in math. And as far as my educational upbringing, I would just say at a young age, my mother and father just instilled all of these important skills that I believe every student definitely needs to have as far as studying and prioritizing. At a young age, my mother and my father showed me these things, and so I kind of went from there, you know, helping me with my homework, and then it got to a point where I didn't need help with my homework anymore, and I just went to school. Some obstacles came. It was more so just me not being challenged and wanting to do more.
At what point did the obstacles occur, and what were those obstacles?
Elementary school.
Elementary school. What grade? Do you remember?
Third grade.
Third grade.
Was the first occurrence. My parents wanted me to skip a grade, but I was young, you know, loved my friends, and I didn't want to leave my friends or anything.
At what point did they want you to skip a grade?
Was that third grade?
At they wanted you to skip to fifth?
Yep.
Okay.
Because I was reading at a 5th grade level. My math skills were great, and I was just learning really fast, and so they just believed that, okay, no, she may not know 5th grade material, but we can put her there, and she can do it. You teach her, she can learn it. But I told them, no, you know, I was too frightened. I was in 3rd grade, you know, 5th grade was a big gap. And so I said no, but then I got to 6th grade, and I was completely bored. And I went home and I said, I want to skip a grade.
You did?
Yeah.
Now, was 6th grade in elementary school or middle school?
So District 279, they have K through 6, and then 7 to 9, and then 10th grade actually starts high school. So high school is 10 through 12.
Right. Okay.
And we call it junior high.
Yeah, so more the old junior high concept. Yeah, okay. So by the time you got to 6th grade, you were plenty bored, huh?
Yes.
So could you reflect upon your elementary school years? Did you feel that it was high quality education there at Zanewood?
There were some good aspects.
It was Zanewood.
Yep, Zanewood.
Okay, elementary. Yeah.
just from what I know now and I've learned, I don't know if I would call it high quality. I would say that I loved my teachers.
Okay.
They were great, great teachers, and they definitely saw students who were advanced. They definitely wanted to do as much as they can to help challenge them. But when you have a classroom of 25 to 30 students, you kind of have to go with your curriculum.
What made them great? One of the things that I always want to be specific about is we are accustomed to saying great. I'll ask my students, for example, great teacher, and then when I ask close questions, what they really mean is a nice teacher, right? Now, I'm sure that's not all that you mean, but I am always interested when a particular person says a great teacher, what you mean by that.
I say great teacher because they helped me grow. They would compliment me on my accomplishments and definitely give me a high five, but when they saw an area that I was lacking in, they weren't shy to, correct me. They took their, parent-teacher conferences very seriously and gave great feedback. For me, for instance, I was a kid who I would raise my hand in the middle of class to tell a random story. And this was a young age, and, I believe that some teachers could have just put it off and said, okay,
Now, when you say random, was it completely random?
It was completely random.
Not even on, no, just popped into your head. Okay.
And so, just being able to kind of bring me aside and talk to me, I don't know if that's what nice teachers do, but I just felt like now I don't see that all the time. And, just really close. They were like,
when you would come up with that random story, would they try to find a way to sort of riff on it or to work it into the class somehow?
Yeah, they definitely wouldn't shut me down, which was really nice.
Yeah.
They definitely didn't shut me down, worked it in, but after the fact, Kendra, great story.
Yeah.
If you ever want to talk about anything, definitely, during recess or free time, you can talk about anything, but, in class when we're talking about counting pennies, I don't think you should talk about.
So in your memory, was that true for the K through 6 years? Most of your teachers were that way?
Yes, I had one teacher that I didn't get along with very well.
What grade was that?
This is third grade.
Third grade, okay.
Third grade.
Was that part of your parents' concern, is that they could tell that somehow you were not completely happy in class, you were also advanced, and so that was part of the whole scene of wanting you to skip ahead?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that tells me, when I hear, I'm always listening carefully to people, and so if your teachers mostly were that way, with the exception of this third grade teacher, that tells me that there was an ethic at the school, probably a principal, who hired those kind of people or encouraged those kind of people to be in that building and wanted teachers to treat students that way. Because as we know, it's not necessarily the typical teacherly way.
Yeah.
So from elementary school, before we move on, what was emphasized as far as subjects? I gather that you've got good, strong math training, and I would guess that you probably got good reading, instruction in reading, and you were an advanced reader, you said. Besides those subjects, do you remember anything clearly that your teachers emphasized?
I do remember social studies.
You do?
I do remember having the big textbook and going through and reading about, we learned about the Crusades. This was like 6th grade. I remember that.
Okay. So was that a world history textbook?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Okay.
I believe it was.
The Crusades.
Yeah. And science.
Okay. You
too.
did some science.
Did some science. I'm just.
In what way
so
did you
far.
do? Was it presented in an organized, sequential way, or was it like, okay, today we're going to start
Organized.
It was.
It was. We actually had like class, and so it wasn't. We even they started to try to get students used to and prepared for junior high, so switching teachers. So I remember there was even a point where we'd have one teacher teach us social studies, and we'd all be in that classroom. They would open up the walls, they had like a dividing wall, open that up so everyone could fit in there. And then a different teacher would teach us a different subject, and they would kind of explain, in junior high you're not going to have one teacher that teaches you everything. It's going to be different, and so I remember that too being implemented in the later years.
So just out of curiosity, so you studied the Crusades and you say your memory is it was presented in an organized sequential way. So for example, did you learn anything about the ancient Greeks, the Roman Empire, the Chinese dynasties? You did?
Yeah.
Song Dynasty, Tang Dynasty, and so
I couldn't tell you everything in detail, but
because it was a long time ago.
yeah, but definitely.
But I'm really interested because this is interesting. That's more history than students have generally gotten in the Minneapolis public schools under focused instruction, as I've talked about before. It's beginning to get a bit more systematic, but that really catches my attention. So the great West African empires, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, do you remember studying Africa at all? Or okay. All right. Nevertheless, that's a fair amount of history. The reason that I mention that is that for really many decades, elementary social studies has tended to be really, in my estimation, kind of weak stuff like my family, my community, kind of my opinions on what goes on, and it's not very good, solid, factual information, but it sounds to me like you actually got some history. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So, you say then by the time you got to 6th grade, you did want to skip a grade. Did you skip a grade at that point?
No. What happened was, so it was more so math. Math is what made me want to skip. I remember opening up my math book and telling my mom, this is a joke. I said, Mom, this is a joke. She's like, Kendra, I was like, yeah, this is, I'm like.
What do you remember? What exercises were there? What
I just
material?
remember there was an example, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with, they're like cubes. So there's like this cube thing, and that means 100. And then there's like this sheet thing, and that means maybe that's 100. The cube is 1,000. I don't remember. Then you have these little ones that are like ones, and I remember seeing that in there. I'm like, I remember using those in 2nd grade, and it was for like doing like multiplication, and it was kind of beginning algebra. And I said, Mom, this equation says 10 equals x plus 4. What is x? I said, this is a joke. We all know what x is. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to sit in class.
Did we all know that?
We didn't. We all didn't know that, and that's why they were teaching it, which I'm glad they taught it, because we all didn't know it, only I and a select few. But Zanewood did try to kind of fill that gap. There was CML, and you know, they when I didn't want to skip, they said, oh, but you're in CML, and that was Gifted and Talented program that they had going in District 279.
What did CML stand for? No, you don't remember. Okay.
Don't remember.
Okay.
But basically, with that, and the reason why I said I don't want to do that, I would prefer to skip a grade, is because I just remember I was part of the Gifted and Talented program at a very young age. Like, I don't remember what grade I was brought into it, but they more so focused on math. And it's Gifted and Talented, and I look at Gifted and Talented a little differently. I feel like some people look at it as, this student is a genius. They just know calculus. And for me, I think someone that's gifted and talented is someone that can really learn and retain it and be able to teach it. I don't think that if someone, let's say someone didn't just know calculus, I don't think that doesn't mean that they're not gifted and talented. But in this program, I would literally go, I would take this exam, I wouldn't be taught any material. It would be more so, let's see what we can throw at her as far as like, let's see her problem solving skills. And let's say I would get 5 out of 7, right? Oh, wow, she's really good. She's really good. And I would, miss class, go take this test. And I remember for a period of time, we didn't even go over how to get the right answers. Okay, I got 2 wrong. Like, how are you supposed to get those? We wouldn't even go over it. It was just like, all right, go back to class. And
do it and then go back to class.
Yep.
So not that much.
And we'd get packets.
Instruction.
Yep, thick packets that we had to do. And I already had a math class that I was in. So you wanted me to be in my math class to do that, plus this packet. And
that was what passed for your gifted and talented experience, was being given the packet and doing it, but not really getting that much instruction.
I believe my last year, that's when I actually had someone who went over.
The reason that catches my attention is because there are different programs in Minneapolis public schools, but I know that this is true, for example, in Columbia Heights, where kids after school, they're supposed to get some training in taking the ACT, college preparatory experiences and what have you. But my experience is that what those classes tend to be is sort of getting a vision on college, kind of knowing how to do applications, kind of knowing the structure of the ACT, but suspiciously, not that much instruction on some of those more difficult math programs or the sophisticated vocabulary, because that's what my West Texas pappy called elbow grease, you know? That's the hard work, you know, and it also is the knowledge, and it opens up the suspicion that the teacher herself or himself may not be all that comfortable as a bright student like you with the material. Does that resonate?
Yeah, for me, I kind of think they were more so like, oh, we have these geniuses at our school, let's see what they can do, but I just felt like, you know, a way to really advance these students would have been to have us doing advanced algebra.
Yeah.
You know, we were taking off class, you know, and really teach us something. I felt like I didn't learn anything. I mean, it was problem-solving skills, which are very important to know, but they didn't necessarily teach us the problem-solving skills. It was more so, let's see what they have. And I really didn't see the point in that. I feel like if you have a lot of students who you see who are advanced and have it, why not really take them and say, okay, yes, they're in elementary school, but these kids they can learn very fast.
So I just want to make sure I've got this right. So these packets that you were given, and by the way, when I hear packet, it sort of gives me shivers, kind of like worksheets, you know?
Yeah.
Because I never used that stuff. If I ever used anything like that, I made sure the students didn't call them worksheets. I said, this is an assignment, you know, on the rare occasions when I did anything like that. But that's a lazy way to teach, as we know, right? So my suspicion is that they gave you, and so it was supposed to be problem solving, right?
Yep.
But there was no engagement with the teacher on the problem solving?
No, it was just like, oh, how'd you do on your packet?
Yeah. This also resonates with me because there's a conceit that comes out of departments of education that what students really need is not a solid knowledge base, but how to think critically and to develop lifelong learning. Now my thing is always, it's kind of hard to develop a lifelong learning if you haven't really been challenged with good solid knowledge to begin with.
Right.
And critical thinking, I think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to follow their education professor's instructions to present you with problem solving. It's just that they didn't quite know how to engage you with the critical analysis. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm doing. Is that, yeah. Okay, so you got to 6th grade, so your experience in 3rd grade was not great, but on the whole, your experience in Zanewood was a good one.
Yeah.
Except that 6th grade was your last one, and things were beginning to bog down then.
Mm-hmm.
So then you went to junior high, actually?
Maple Grove,
Maple
junior high,
Grove?
yep.
Okay, tell us about that.
I loved Maple Grove Junior High. I honestly, I don't have any complaints because I was like explaining to you earlier, for HP we had to take an exam. So in 6th grade I took this test and I got a score and they had a bar set. So, you know, 96 and up, you're in HP. If you didn't make the cut, you're not, unfortunately, because they could only have so many students because they only had so many teachers that actually taught it. And so I was in HP classes, all of my peers. We were all at the same level educationally, and I feel like just motivationally as well, we all had the same goal, which was to get an A. And when it came to group projects, everyone did their part. You didn't have someone that didn't do any work because they didn't care about their grade.
Oh, you've just touched on another one of my things. So,
Project.
and by the way, HP, I know from what Kendra's told me, is high performing. You got all these different different terms for different programs. AP in many high schools now is advanced placement, but this was in middle school and it was high performing. And these were really students who had proved that they were capable of rising to high challenges. Now, let's talk about group projects just in general. Back in elementary school and along the way, had you done different group projects? Do you know that? What is your memory of group projects, positive or not so?
Well, not so. I mean, it's positive because in elementary school, I was bossy. So for my group project, it was what I wanted to do, and because it wasn't a lot of work, I never felt like, I got stuck doing all the work. I got to do what I wanted for my group project. And so it really wasn't that experience. But I do know there were times where a teacher placed me with someone who I was just kind of like, no.
Yeah.
Their quality of work and my quality of work are two different things.
Just talking to various students, and this was true of my son, and I'm sure this was the case from what I'm hearing from you, is that there tends to be one person in the group who does most of the work and upon whom everybody depends. And you better hope that your sort of skill level manifests itself and drives the grade, because I've also known of situations where the whole group got dragged down because people didn't come through. So that's another thing that comes out of education. Schools is an emphasis on group as opposed to individual projects a lot of time, thinking that students acting cooperatively, it trains them to go out in the real world and cooperate with people. But it kind of sometimes breaks down, doesn't it?
I think if everyone has to do it individually and they, can learn from that experience, get their skill set to a certain level, then yes, when you do go out in the real world and you have to collaborate, then everyone is at a certain level, and yes, you can do great things and amazing things and come up with great ideas. But if you go through life doing group projects and being able to depend on the smart one, to set the group up, say what the project's going to be, tell you what you're going to do, I don't think that's going to set that person up. That person's going to go into the workforce depending on their coworkers, for coming up with a headline for this issue of whatever sort.
The way it was handled back in elementary school, because I'm hearing you say it actually worked fairly well because you were on the same level once you got to junior high.
Yeah.
Back in middle school, in elementary school, did you find it an efficient way to learn information, being in a group? Do you think you would have learned more if the teacher was just conducting a whole class, or?
Well, it was more so both. So like whatever topic that we did, we would have covered in class. The group would have been more so reinforcing it, going over it, seeing how much you really know, testing what you really got out of what the teacher just talked about. Kind of discussing, discuss amongst your classmates. And then we would still go over everything. So let's say, because for me, sometimes I would just get to the point where it's like, okay, you should know what 5 + 3 is. I'm not going to explain that to you. And so in that case, the teacher still went over it after the question was given.
So in that class setting, what percentage would you say was the teacher imparting information for the whole class, and what percentage was set aside for group projects?
Majority of the teacher.
Majority teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel the time spent in the group project was worthwhile? Was it time well spent, or would you have rather spent it some other way?
I would have rather spent it some other way.
Okay. All right. I'm just really interested in that kind of thing. That's kind of my bias, but I wanted to hear what you had to say about that, as far in terms of really learning information, and there's so much to learn, you don't want to waste time.
There's so much to learn, and I just think that at that level, we really don't know that much.
Yes.
I personally think that if we're learning a new topic, and this is a new topic, I don't know anything about this topic.
Right.
You don't know anything about that topic,
right.
But the teacher does.
Right.
So you want me to discuss in this group this
we
topic.
hope the teacher does. Yeah. I mean, that would be the idea, right? See, that's my thing, is that, again, out of education schools, there's this notion that the teacher is a facilitator, and the student is supposed to find various sources of information and draw things together, and a lot of it, it sounds like in your school there was a better defined curriculum, but a lot of times there's very little in the way of a defined curriculum, so that the student interests themselves drive curriculum. But as you say, you have a certain limited experience with the world and an experienced knowledge base when you're going to, if you're expected to drive the curriculum, right? Okay. I'm just interested to hear you speak to those things, because people have heard me speak to it.
Yeah.
And you tend to reinforce a lot of the things, the points that I try to make. But I do know that you did have a good experience in middle school, so tell the folks more about that.
Middle school is when I was really able to become active. I was president of student council, chairman of the board. I was actually part of another board where it was me and staff members at my school. And I remember I was part of the hiring process of our vice principal. And I was the, student opinion and student representative for that board. And I just remember doing so much. And it was a really great experience because I got to do those things. And as far as educational wise, my teachers, we clicked and we formed great bonds and relationships. And I remember I believe it was my eighth grade science teacher, or no, my 7th grade science teacher. In 7th grade, got to dissect a pig. I believe it was 7th grade. And had fun. I loved it. From the beginning, I knew that I wanted to be a surgeon since kindergarten. So,
Really?
That early? That early.
Do you remember what put that in your head at kindergarten?
Well, part of it was my mom was a nurse, my uncle was a laboratory tech, and my uncle, although he's just a laboratory tech, he knows everything. He reads all the time, and he would come and tell me a lot of information about the medical field. And did you know this? Did you know this? My mom would come home, talk about work. I would go to work with her. And I remember asking her one day, I said, "Hey, Mom, I want a limo and a butler and a mansion." And
this was in kindergarten?
And I said, at kindergarten, as far as the profession, it was my mom's profession and a teacher. And I said, I liked school. I said, so if I be a teacher, can I have a limo and a butler and a mansion? And she said, Kendra, with the salary, it's just like, no, you can't. And I said, well, what can I do where I can have a limo and a butler and a mansion? She said, so there's a lot of things. She said, but, because she knew my interest in the medical field, she said, but doctors? She's like, they can have a limo and a butler and a mansion if they wanted to. And I said, I really like the brain. I said, I think I want to be a brain doctor. She said, the correct term is neurosurgeon.
You already had an interest in the brain. Wow, that's very
I've always loved science, and my mom would collect teddy bears. And I remember in my room I had like this, I don't know, it's like a hanging thing of just teddy bears. I remember having another one in this corner, and I would take it and I would go in the bathroom, from like medicine, the syringes, and I would take the scissors, and my mom always had needle and thread for like stitching something up, and I would cut my bear open, I would make some random solution, and I would say I'm, sterilizing the site. And I watched TV too, so I kind of got some terms from there and some influence from that, and then I remember I'd stitch it back up. But what I didn't even realize until recently, I made H&Ps. I would have a sheet of paper, a notepad, and I would have date of birth, patient name, their condition, what I was treating them for, and I didn't even realize I was doing all of this stuff.
You just did that spontaneously, just because you thought that was important to do.
Well, I kind of, yes, and I also saw it.
Yeah, you saw it.
So I kind of saw a little bit, and I kind of
models.
put some things together, and I would make up different diagnoses, and and it kind of all.
So you were playing doctor more for real than a lot of kids do. That's a common game, but you were serious about this. Okay,
Yes.
Back to middle school, because, by the way, Holly, could you cut that just a second?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed middle school, being active, and like I was saying, my teacher, I moved to 8th grade, wasn't my teacher anymore, but she called me back, she said, hey Kendra, we are I'm dissecting a pig this week, I know you want to be a surgeon, do you want to come and help me out with the students? I said, I would love to. And so I had that kind of relationship with my teachers where, usually you move on to the next grade and you may never hear from your teacher again, but no, I've connected with all of my teachers throughout my junior high experience, as well as the principal too.
So they would pull you in to help them with their own sort of experiments.
They knew that it was really, my interest, and so just encouraging that for me, that was just really great.
Now, this reminds me, so you told me once upon a time that you always did open enrollment. So Zanewood itself was a decision, even though you lived in Brooklyn Park. Nevertheless, that was a decision. You want to just tell the folks how those decisions were made, because I think that's important. So in other words, she was not a student who sort of it was just assumed that she would go to the neighborhood school or the school that was expected because of her neighborhood. How was it the decisions made?
Well, part of it is, I know for Zanewood particularly, with full-time kindergarten, you know, a lot of schools are doing like half-day kindergarten or like every other day or something like that. I'm not really familiar with it, but I know Zanewood, you went to kindergarten all day. They had after-school programs, and so that was part of it as well. My cousin had lived next to Zanewood, and so my mom could drop me off at my cousin's house. I could, you know, have someone to go to school with, and particularly, I just believe it was a full-time, like all-day kindergarten and like the after-school programs that they had available is why Zanewood was the school of choice.
And did your parents discuss that choice with you, or were they basically saying, this is what we're seeing in this school and we'd like you to go there?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And even for junior high, I mean, it wasn't really my choice. Zanewood's junior high is Northview. My dad told me, no, you're not going there. And so I honestly don't know how Maple Grove came. I don't know if he looked up some schools, if maybe a friend of his told him about Maple Grove Junior High, but when junior high came, you're going to Maple Grove Junior High.
Okay.
And I said, Dad, none of my friends are going there. And he said, your friends aren't going to get you into college. Your friends aren't going to get you a job. That was always my dad's thing. And so that wasn't a choice.
The reason this catches my ear is because in our system of public education, we have much better schools and mediocre schools and what generally people know as poor schools. And so an aggressive parent, an assertive parent sort of agitates to get her or his child the best situation possible. But not everyone is in that situation, right? And so in an ideal world, we would have uniform quality throughout our public schools. But Kendra is one of the relatively lucky ones whose parents were very engaged and you were active in your learning. And so you got from the system the very best you could. However, as we've taught, do you think you got everything that you needed to get out of your K through 12 experience?
No.
Which means even the best, see? I mean, even the best, going to the best schools don't really get everything they need. So how much more languishing behind are those children whose parents are not as assertive as you were or come to be as engaged as you were? But go on.
And for high school, by this time, you know, I knew that I was going to be having a car, and I knew, like, from second grade, I believe my mom sat down one day and she said, hey, Kendra, you know there's this program, it's called PSCO. And I said, oh, what's that? She's like, you can go to college for free 2 years during high school. I said, I want to do it.
And this was at what age you found out about that?
8.
8 years old.
8.
So you already knew. Yeah. So post-secondary options, educational options.
Yeah, post-secondary education opportunity, I think.
Okay, yeah. Post-secondary. Very, you know, for students who are operating at a high level, that is a real option these days. And you knew at age 8 that you wanted to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
So for high school, it kind of wasn't, I really wasn't too big of a deal which high school I went to, whether it was Osseo or Maple Grove Senior. I didn't go to Maple Grove Senior just because at Maple Grove I was pretty much the only black person in all of my high performance classes.
At Maple Grove?
Yeah, at Maple Grove Junior.
Now, I know from what you told me, and I want you to speak to this, and I know Holly is interested in this. It seemed to me that the dynamic between you and your fellow students was pretty good at Maple Grove. Is that right? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So my peers, as far as students that were in my grade, and even like a year older, got along well. I didn't feel like my color changed anything. I did have, though, however, I had to educate one of my peers on African Americans and the stereotypes, because her parents, it was ridiculous, like the things that she would say, like, wow, you're really smart to be black. Did your dad have a nice car? Like, I didn't even know that, and I was thinking, what?
Your friend would say that?
Yeah, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, and, you know.
Did that come as a total surprise to you at that point? I mean, because you were just sort of in the rhythm of doing very well and being in the flow, that it kind of caught you?
Yeah, For me, like I have family members who weren't, doing as well as me in school, but my household, it was just us. So, not.
And high achievement was expected.
It was
It was there in
expected.
your parents. You said your dad, he was a sort of a medical technician, but interested in all kinds of things.
No, my uncle.
Your uncle?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
my dad was super history, which you would think I would know my dates better because my dad is a historian. But my mom was the nurse, so she was
Okay.
into the medicine.
And your dad professionally was what?
He was into history, so he is like an historian.
Okay.
But he's not like an historian. That was like.
That was his deep interest.
Yeah.
What did he do professionally?
He was actually a car dealer. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He
But-
definitely loves cars.
Like my father-in-law, though, probably in another life, he would love to be a history teacher or
Yeah.
professor. That was his deep interest. Well, okay. In any case, you had intellectually engaged parents. You yourself, from the time you were 8 years old, wanted to be in PSEO, post-secondary options, and went through this HP high-powered middle school experience. I think we better move on from middle school to high school.
Yeah.
Tell us how ASIO came about.
ASIO came about because it was in the neighborhood. I did want to go to Maple Grove Junior High. Not Maple Grove Junior High, Maple Grove Senior High.
Why was that?
Because of the interaction that I had with the older students at Maple Grove. They just weren't friendly. And I felt like,
And did you think they were not friendly because of your race,
Yes.
ethnicity?
because I believe that I am a nice person, I'm kind, I think I have a great personality, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you like me? But as I've gotten older, you can be a great person, somebody just still won't like you. So I could have went to Maple Grove Senior High and been fine.
So when you say older people, I mean, were these
Ninth
fellow...
graders.
Oh, ninth
The ninth
graders
graders.
who were in the junior high
Yep.
setup, okay.
Mhm.
But you actually moved, am I right, that you moved from high school from 8th to 9th grade? Or
No,
you
high
went from-
school was 10th grade, so high school was,
Okay, even in Osseo it was?
Yep.
So you started in 10th grade?
yeah, because District 279, they had high school 10 through 12.
Okay, so I'm still trying to get a grip on the situation because in general at Maple Grove you had a positive experience.
Definitely.
Now, by the time you got to 9th grade, were these people who were not in the HP classes, or did you have a different kind of interaction with them?
No,
No?
it was the same class. I just knew that when I got to high school, those older kids were gonna be there, and I just didn't want to deal with that. At Maple Grove, everyone liked me. I had all like these great friends.
Uh-huh.
Being in the ninth graders, you were the older kids,
Uh-huh.
and I just was just like, I don't know what kind of experience I'm gonna have at Maple Grove Junior High, great experience, and I'm like, I'm just gonna be there for a year. So I said, I'll try something new, and I open enrolled to ASIO.
So, but again, was it fellow ninth graders that gave you this kind of
No.
heads up? But it was people that you knew who were older?
Yeah, so
In the high school already?
yeah, and I had interaction with them
Oh.
in 7th grade when I first
Oh.
went to Maple Grove.
Okay.
I was in 7th grade, they were in 9th grade. They left, me and my peers, we grew together, great experience. But then when 9th grade came, I said, okay, those kids are gonna
Can
be
you
left
put your
in school.
finger on, I mean, this is very interesting because this is all at Maple Grove and these are all people generally from that same environment. What do you think it was about those older people that?
I just think it was because there was not a lot of black students at Maple Grove.
Mhm.
And a lot of my peers, not that I wasn't their first black friend, but I was definitely the only one. I'm pretty sure maybe down the line somewhere in elementary school, I'm pretty sure they run into some black kids, but in junior high, I was the only black person.
So, but you just got to know them, it was clear, you were at the top of your class, so
I was often the top of my
Yeah,
class. Like,
so
who has a 99?
you
That's
just
me.
fit in with your peer group, but somehow with the older kids, it just, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm beginning to understand that then. Okay, well, tell us about Osseo then and how that came about.
ASIO, I just decided to go there. I had some friends that were going there, and I knew that I was going to do PSEO full-time junior year, so I said I'll just be there for a year, why not? Joined the dance team, and went there, signed up for HP classes, because I had been doing HP since junior high, and I got there, and I was ready to go.
And what was it about it that made you ready to go?
It was just the way things were taught, I guess. I felt like, being an HP, I was challenged in junior high, my HP classes. definitely was challenged, and all my classmates were on the same level. But in high school, HP, you didn't take this test. It wasn't like, oh, you had to be an HP in junior high. It was no, everyone and anybody could be in HP. It was
Open enrollment for the high performing classes. It was still called HP.
Yep, it was still called HP.
Did you have AP classes?
The only AP class I was offered for 10th grade was history.
Oh.
And
so at Osceola there was only the history that had AP.
For 10th grade, and then I think 11th grade they might have. I think they had chemistry.
And just to be clear, so AP is advanced placement, and that's a nationwide program in a lot of high schools where students can take that, and then they take an exam. It's graded on the basis of 5 points generally, sometimes 6, and in any case, if you achieve a 3 or particularly a 4, then colleges will give you college credit. But at her school, it was only world history that was really offered. So otherwise, you were in these classes that were supposed to be high performing, which really had been at Maple Grove, but because it was open enrollment, maybe not so much from student to student at Osceola.
Yeah, I mean, my my HP biology teacher, she was great. Loved her. Again, she interacted with the students, would really say, hey, you didn't turn in your homework, like, I need you to get this done. It was really on students. But for me, I was thinking, you're an HP. Your teacher shouldn't have to come and really get on you about turning in your homework. And
we were talking a bit about this earlier now, and you said a teacher said basically what I was suspecting was the case as to why there was open enrollment. How did your teacher explain why there was open enrollment?
Being able to say that, 75% of our students are high-performing students or in these classes, that looks good. That looks good for the school, and I believe that's it, because why wouldn't you, why would you have this exam for HP for junior high, but then in high school it changed?
And again, this resonates with me because this is a theme I observe in the Minneapolis public schools, which I watch most closely, but where a lot of students these days are encouraged to take AP classes, and they definitely are encouraged to take the ACT exam. And that sounds like a good thing. It is a good goal, but it also helps to be properly prepared for both the challenging classes and for the ACT. My observation right now is that you've got a lot of people taking the ACT, so the Minneapolis public schools can emphasize that, but now we're going to have to see where exactly those scores are ending up, and I suspect that they're not going to be as high as the enrollment figures, if you see what I mean. So, if you're going to claim high performance or advanced placement, you should provide the instruction. So tell us about in your 10th grade year and then going on to PSEO and that stuff.
My 10th grade year, I had fun. I made a lot of new friends. I was on the dance team, and that was really fun. As far as classes go, it was a joke. That's my favorite thing.
Tell us about that. I mean, in what way were your classes a joke? I think this is very important. If this was your experience. I
just believe that me being able to do a week's worth of material in an afternoon setting, I don't think it should be like that. Right now, there's no way I can say, okay, I'm going to get my calcs, weeks of worth of material done in a setting. No, it would take me days.
What subjects were you taking in your 10th grade year that were supposed to be high performing?
English, biology. In biology, although the students were not all high performing students, the material that we learned was. And definitely learned a lot.
So there was failure in droves then, I would imagine.
Yeah, there was not all A's as I was used to.
Okay.
From my
and the teacher was pretty good? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then history, U.S. history, and then I had to take Phy-Ed. Unfortunately, I had to take Phy-Ed. And what else did I take in 10th grade?
Why did you say unfortunately you had to take Phy-Ed? It's good to be fit, right?
It's great to be fit, but now with gym memberships, I don't want to go to school and I sweat. Like when I work out, especially in my head, that's the first thing. So
Did you have an opportunity to take a shower? I mean, was there enough time?
there's no, there's not enough time, and you didn't make your schedule. In college, you can pick this time I want to have this class, and no, it was in the morning.
Okay, so it was the way it was handled.
Yeah.
All right, so 10th grade, you had fun, you made some friends,
Yep.
Classes weren't all that great, and
Yep.
then tell us about your experiences at North Hennepin.
North Hennepin, my first semester, I took biology, freshman writing, world history. It was like beginning to like the 1300s. I took 16 credits and another class, but I just remember linking with my biology professor. He was great. Again, great teacher, definitely engaged with the class, tried to get to know the students. And this was in college, and in college I was told, you're gonna go to class, they're not gonna ask you your name, they're just gonna teach. And he was different. Not what I was told, to expect. And he kind of pushed me. He told me, he said, hey, I have a colleague, he is doing this research thing, I think you'd be great in it. I gave him your information, collected an email, and so I was doing research in a lab, and I was only 16. 16, doing research, doing PCR, electrophoresis, all that genetic analysis, and I hadn't even learned any of that. I hadn't learned any of the terms.
Just threw yourself into it,
He just
dove into it.
And he just said, you'd be great, just because in biology I was doing so great in it, and he would give me back my exam, and he'd say, really, you couldn't get those two right? So I'd get 98 out of 100, it's like, you couldn't get those two right? And so, yeah, so that was a great first experience being in college. It was definitely different.
What math did you take?
Oh, that's right, I took college algebra.
Okay.
And
Got a sigh from Holly on that.
took college algebra with Mr. Gupta, and I love Mr. Gupta. He pulled me out too. He kind of pulled me aside, and definitely instilled some really good skills. And he told me that your goal should not be to get an A. Your goal should be to learn this material as much as you can. And he said, in doing that, you should get an A. But if you don't feel disappointed if you know that you really learned the material. He said, but if you really do learn the material, you should get an A.
Yeah. The proper sequence, the proper way to get
because
an A.
my goal was, I want an A, I want an A, I want an A, I want an A. And I just remember, like, I turned in my first homework assignment. I showed no work. I did everything in my head, wrote the answer down, and he gave me 1 out of 10. And I went to him and I said, Mr. Gupta, all my answers are right. He said, the back of the book. I said, Mr. Gupta, honestly, I said, I should be in pre-calc right now. I said, they had to take the placement test. We couldn't use calculators. I used calculators the whole year, my whole 10th grade year in Algebra 1. And I said, so, yeah, I got some of the trick stuff wrong. We got to use our calculators. And I said, I know all this stuff. And he said, well, according to this, you don't. He said, there's no work. I don't know what you did here. And so he kind of showed me. He's like, this is how you show your work. And so I said, okay. The next assignment, I didn't want to use a lot of paper. So I had all of my work going, horizontally and like little lines. And he said, Kendra, I would not be mad if you, waste a little trees. Like, I'm not going to be mad.
Yeah.
You have to be thorough.
That is so interesting because I'm always telling my students, I don't care about answers. And they go, what? And I said, no. I mean, I hope you get the right answer, but I want to see how you get that answer.
And I definitely got that from him. And so I took him for college algebra and pre-calc, and by the end of pre-calc, I turned in 5 sheets of paper for a homework assignment, and I really learned math. Where everything was coming from, things I should have learned, in my prior math classes.
And you said he was not a big proponent of the calculator. Is that right?
No, no calculators.
What did you feel that you learned by putting the calculator aside and actually having to show this on the trees, as he put them?
I feel like I learned math.
Yeah.
I feel like I really learned math and what's going on, especially in calculus,
Mhm.
now that I'm taking multivariable
Mhm.
calculus,
Mhm.
there's problems where it says, evaluate this integral of this function that lies over this paraboloid. You have to first know what a paraboloid is, but it gives you the equation. And you have to be able to look at that equation and know what picture that is. And I just remember in Algebra 1, this was HP Algebra 1, but, or was it Algebra 2? HP Algebra something in high school. She showed us how to programs in our calculator, how to plug this equation in. It would show you the graph. And I remember going to college with Mr. Gupta, and he said, no, if it says y equals x, you should know what that is. If I have y equals 2x plus 4y, you should know what that looks like. If I have y equals x cubed plus 86x squared plus whatever, he said, you should know what that looks like. You should not have to run to your calculator and plug it in. And so I'm really glad that, I did PSEO and got that knowledge of really knowing and understanding math at its basics, because going along and furthering, my education in math, that's always being used every single time I do a problem. I'm always knowing, okay, well, this equation is y equals this complicated thing, but let me look at it.
That's such interesting detail on something that's a deep conviction of mine. To a student, the kids in my program will know what I mean when I say the nasty thing. The calculator, right? As far as I'm concerned, particularly up through what we've conventionally considered 8th grade math, ratios and proportions and stuff, there's no reason, And for long division, which is a lost art, if you think about it, there's so much that's reviewed, subtraction, borrowing, and the whole thing, and to actually know then what that calculator is doing has enormous value.
Yeah, definitely.
So you had a great experience at North Hennepin.
Yeah.
And we're just really happy not to be at Osseo.
Yep.
Quite frankly. Tell us about the U. So then you went on to the U. And,
Yeah. I actually, my first year, I called my mom and I said, I wouldn't mind getting a 4-year from North Hennepin. She said, Kendra, North Hennepin doesn't give out 4 years. And I was like, oh shoot. But yeah, no, the U, it's a public university, and it's research based. And so with the U comes enormous opportunities for a lot of things. Research, being able to be a freshman and you're working in a professor's lab who is actually publishing what he's finding, and that in that aspect it's great, but that student-professor relationship, it's not really there in all of my classes. I clicked with a lot of my professors at North Hennepin. Can email them and ask them for a letter of recommendations. At the U, and part of it is my fault, you have to be more active. You have to go up to the professor and introduce yourself. There is no, okay class, everyone introduce yourself, stand up, tell me, your year or, your favorite color or whatever. No, there's none of that. It's, okay, we're learning cell bio. We're gonna learn about, the hedgehog pathway, whatever. So, but they definitely have office hours. You can go to the office hours and that kind of thing.
Do you make use of those?
Yes.
Okay.
I do calculus. I finished Calc 2, and then that was my senior year. And I just started Calc 4, so I went 2 years without calculus. So I definitely visit my calc professor.
To ask close questions about particular problems?
Yeah, or just some things that I might have forgot from like Calc 1 or Calc 2, and
Right.
say, hey, I know there's some theorem here.
Right.
And she's definitely really helpful going over that.
So for you students watching, one of the things I am communicating to my high school students as they move on out to college is that even though you're really smart, which obviously Kendra is, you get to college and that's another world, and you will find yourself running into stumbling blocks. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of just going up to the professor and saying, I have to get this straight. Just because back in high school you were accustomed to doing everything just really easy, not always going to be that way, even for the smartest of the smart. So
Physics.
yeah.
Physics definitely is what I never thought to get a tutor or to ask for help, which is really weird. Like, come on, right? You don't get something, you ask for help. But I always just knew it, got it, didn't need any help. And physics was something different. And I always say, if you graduated from undergrad with a 4.0, you did not take physics. Physics was very, very difficult. Just a different way of thinking, kind of. And I wasn't used to that, and I was really struggling. I was telling my mom, like, Mom, I think I'm gonna fail this class. And she was like, Kendra, no you're not. Get a tutor. And I said, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And so she's like, Kendra, have someone show you. She's like, you know, the way the professor's teaching it isn't resonating with you, isn't sticking, you're not getting it, but maybe if you have a peer who's taken the class, they might know some shortcuts, some different ways of explaining it. And I did that, and I got it. I got it. And that's why now I definitely meet with your professors for office hours, and I'm not afraid. I think if I tell you that I don't know anything, it's not because I'm a bad student. It's just because I didn't, the way that you taught it in class, I didn't understand it. And so when I meet with you during office hours, you didn't write on the board in class. You had a PowerPoint and you just talked. But when I meet with you in your office, I'm gonna need you to write some stuff down, draw some figures, because I don't get it. And I'm not shy to do that at all if I don't get something.
So you're holding the teachers accountable for teaching you, you know, and that's a really good point, that there are some teachers who kind of go by the ethic, well, I taught it, but the students didn't learn it. Well, then you didn't teach it, you know, because teaching is getting the information through.
Yeah.
And it's my conviction also that although you're obviously extremely intelligent, people are intelligent in general, and you can always find that key with any given student. That's my conviction, that will just open that little door that they need for that understanding, and then boom, they're on.
Yeah.
But I know people who have forever gone thinking they can't do fractions, you know, and percentages and things, just because it was not properly explained to begin with, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because there is that key to open the door.
Right.
More reflections on the University of Minnesota. Hold on just a second. So how much time we got? Reflections on you.
So, other than that, you know, as far as classes go, they're going really good, and the opportunities are great. I'm going to be working in a lab in the fall, and they have so many. So I'm into like neurodegeneration and Parkinson's and Huntington's, and I actually found a faculty member, and he's like, yeah, I'd love to have you in my lab. And he actually, I was writing my senior thesis, and my professor for that class, I said, hey, I'm having a hard time finding someone, you know. He said, oh, this person would be great. I think he'd be great for you. So I met with the professor, and he said, I'm actually publishing a journal. I'm getting a group of students together, we're gonna write a journal, and I would love to have you be part of it. And I said, okay. I said, okay, why not? And so our journal was on chimeras and parabiosis, which is basically using young blood and kind of using that to heal different disorders. So, you know, let's say someone has heart